distinguished colleagues, I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi. I represent Niger North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to place, yesterday, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Abuja experienced rainfall. And the issue of the rainfall, as it happened yesterday, which was heavy, was reported in various media. However, when I listened to the reportage from the channel's television yesterday, there were many issues that were raised in their report that I felt has impinged upon my privilege and perhaps, and of course, the privilege of my colleagues. In that report yesterday, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, 3 things were reported which were very, very inaccurate. That there was heavy downpour or leakage even in the chamber. That was not correct. There was leakage, of course, around the premises, outside the chamber, and also it was reported that because of that leakage, it delayed our sitting. That also was not correct. The leadership had housekeeping matters, and of course, until the leadership comes into the chamber, sitting will not begin. So that was the only thing. Thirdly, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, and the most critical was that they reported the leadership as approving the sum of 37 billion for rehabilitation of the complex. This is nothing further than the truth. As we all know, when we came on board as the Ninth Senate, the leadership, of course, noticed the level of dilapidation and the need for rehabilitation of the National Assembly complex. The Senate President and the Speaker, of course, approached Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, to report this matter. And we all knew, we were all briefed, that Mr. President was willing, ready to ensure that something is done about it. At the end of the day, like we all know, when the sum of 37 billion was made as provision in the initial 2020 budget, the media went to town castigating and calling the National Assembly members all kinds of names. Now, at the end of the day, like we all knew, of course, the pandemic came, and at the end of the day, that amount was reduced to about 9 billion so that they can take the rehabilitation in phases. As we speak, nothing has been done until yesterday, like we all saw, the leakage across the complex. This is a vindication of what the leadership and indeed the Senate and members of the House of Representatives saw with respect to this edifice, which is a national monument. This is the House of Nigerians, and I believe it is also the face and symbol of our democracy. And we believe as responsible tenants, because we are all tenants here, we have our time, we live. We believe whatever it is, we have a duty to report back to the concerned authority. In this case, the FCDA or the FCDA authority are responsible for the buildings. This we did. So I felt by that reportage, if you follow what was being reported or comments being made in the social media arising from that report alone, it stops at, they will just tell you, last year, 2020, the leadership approved 37 billion, and then they will show rain falling. The entire report was done to denigrate our integrity and to actually impugn on whatever it is that we stand for. I felt by that reportage, my privilege was breached, and I believe the privilege of my colleagues were breached. That is the point of my point of privilege.
Chief Whip, distinguished colleagues, I'm sure most of us saw the report by the channel's television, and let me also say that the channel's TV correspondent or reporter here may not be responsible for that, because I know that our press corps members, correspondents, and reporters are in tune with what we do here and what happens around us. And they are very patriotic, very genuine, very committed to democracy. And therefore, the correspondent, the Senate correspondent of TV, Channels TV, wouldn't have sent that report. Let me advise the media. This is irresponsible, I must say, because seek the truth, investigate properly, come to us or go to those who you think should know better before you compile and send your report. The fact that there was a leakage, to me, is a clear testimony, confirmation, and vindication of the position the National Assembly took initially. By the time we came into office, by the grace of God and your endorsement, the Speaker and I found it necessary to go around this complex, and we found out dilapidation and degradation. In fact, anyone who sees what we have here knows that this place is overdue for rehabilitation. It's even worse downstairs. So we went to see Mr. President to complain to him that there's need to rehabilitate and renovate the National Assembly complex after being used for about 20 years and not rehabilitated at all. And Mr. President was gracious. He asked us to come back, engage the FCDA, who are the owners of this building. The management, the technical side of this National Assembly, and some contractors, maybe Julius Berger and others, to come up with what we need to rehabilitate here and the costing. In fact, I fought against the initial submissions because I was to take the document directly to Mr. President. When I saw what some of them were bringing, I said there was no way I could take that to Mr. President. Go and rework it. They continued to rework and rework until they came down to that 7 billion. And I took that to Mr. President. Mr. President immediately called the late Chief of Staff of blessed memory, Mala Bakiari. He said, go and look for money to rehabilitate the National Assembly complex. Myself, the Speaker, the late Chief of Staff, and the Minister of Finance, Haji Zainab Ahmed, met, and the meeting was to go and look for money to rehabilitate this complex. And for emphasis, when we approved the budget of 37 billion naira for the rehabilitation of this complex, it was not a National Assembly budget. It was an FCDA budget. We have nothing to do with this. But of course, some misinformed, some innocent, some deliberately mischievous went to town and were saying the National Assembly wanted to eat 37 billion naira. There's nothing wrong with this place. This is the house of the citizens of Nigeria. And this is the symbol of democracy, just like the Deputy Chief Whip said. If this complex leaks, the interpretation is we are not holding our democracy with the respect that it deserves. It doesn't have to be us here. It could be anybody, but this symbol of democracy must be protected, must be promoted, must be supported. In fact, the institution of the parliament must be supported by citizens. And we expect the press to take a lead in informing the public properly and appropriately. So with this, I want to once again advise the press, please help us develop this democracy. This house is the house of Nigerians, not the house of members of the National Assembly. National Assembly members can sit anywhere designated as their chambers. It doesn't have to be this place. But this place belongs to Nigerians, and it deserves to be renovated, to be properly rehabilitated, so that whoever the members of the National Assembly are will have an appropriate and decent place to conduct their business of legislation. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.